Hey, everybody, it's Lisa Copeland, and I want to welcome you to the Art of the Big Sell, the podcast where we talk to influencers and people that are not afraid, people that go out there and they just make it happen. And that's no different than my guest here today on the show, who is a very, very good friend of mine and a colleague of mine in the automotive industry. Christy Romans, president of Now Digital. I mean, she's so amazing and she's done so many great things in the automotive industry. But what she did and why she's on this podcast is that she started a movement. She made the decision that the women in automotive needed their own group, their own conference, and their own tribe. Christy Romans, welcome.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Well, thank you so much. I know you had to really scurry to get on this today. You're absolutely just traveling all around the world. Where are you today?
I'm in Atlanta.
What are you doing in Atlanta?
I'm going to a vendor and then I'm going to a couple dealerships.
Okay, good. Well, tell us, before we get into the Women in Automotive Conference and the movement that you started 4 years ago that's absolutely changing the face of the automotive industry, tell us what you do now. What is it? Tell us about Now Digital and what you do exactly.
We're a digital marketing agency for car dealers, basically. And so we say we're the quarterback. We go in and we help dealers manage all their digital. We do some of it in-house, but most of it we use vendors for, and we just help them manage everything that they're doing and help them spend their money correctly.
Oh, that's good. Because I know when I was a car dealer, I felt like I just kept throwing it out the window and yes. I could never get my mind around, is the money I'm spending really working or am I just paying another vendor? So you're really the person, you're the expert that goes in and says, hey, cut this, use these guys, don't use these guys.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So you and I met each other 4 years ago when I got a call and I was still a car dealer then, and I was asked to be the closing keynote for this new conference in Orlando called the Women in Automotive Conference, and that you were the founder of it. So I have to hear, and so not only have you started a conference, you've started a movement that now, of course, I'm very involved in, and I sit on the board, and I look forward to it twice a year. It's the one conference I love to go to. So take us back 4 to 5 years ago when you had this big idea to start a women's conference.
Well, it was really 5 to 6 years ago. I had gone to a marketing to women conference in Chicago, and it was very small. It was a great conference, but it was so small. And I just started thinking, like, why don't we have something like this for women in automotive? I mean, I've grown up in this industry just like you have. I've been in it for 20 some years, and it's kind of lonely sometimes. You just feel like there's nowhere to talk. Who do you talk to? You know, you have friends, but so this idea came that why can't we do something where we have people get together, they network, they learn from each other. We're inspiring each other. We have great content, and it's not a sales focused concept either. So like with you, if you look at most conferences, they're all around most of the time, some kind of a sales message, or people are selling their products and the booths are there to. This is like cause marketing. So every vendor who sponsors, it's not necessarily because they will sell a website, although they might. It's because we have a cause. Our cause is for women who work for dealerships, OEMs, vendors to come together and be inspired and learn from each other and really just, drive the industry forward and help them with their culture issues, help them with like what's going to happen in 10 years when all the older salespeople retire and there's really no bench right now. Like, how can we help this industry do better at hiring and retaining women and young people too, but really focused on women?
Okay, so 5 or 6 years ago when you had this big idea, what was the initial, so you had the idea, you said, okay, I'm going to do this. What was your first obstacle? What was the first thing that almost put a bullet in the deal?
Will anybody come? Will anybody come? It's very expensive to put on a conference, so we didn't do it in a hotel the first year. We found a venue that was aside from a hotel, which was a lot less expensive. And so we hoped 200 people would come, and really just not knowing if anyone would come and putting all this money and effort into, please God, let this be, let this be a decent idea. That was the first obstacle.
It's almost like, planning a New Year's Eve party and like, several other people are planning one too. And you put out the invite, you go, God, I hope I got mine out first. I hope people come to my party.
Right.
There are a lot of industry events. But
Yes.
all the ones I've been to, there's never one specifically for women. And I'll tell you, in the very beginning, I was even a bit of a doubter. I thought, well, first of all, are there really even this many women in the automotive industry? Because I felt like I was always alone. And then next, could they, not would they, because I know that where women will gather, but could they actually take the time off work? They'd probably have to expense it out of their own pockets, because I knew it was going to be a tough buy-in for their bosses, most likely in the beginning. Yep. And, so I was a little worried about it for you, but it was a success.
It was a huge success. It was a smaller venue, so we actually sold it out where the fire marshal was going to have to come if we had any more people. So, so it was a tremendous success. And the thing that I thought was the coolest part about it was the vibe. We didn't know what kind of vibe to expect, how everyone would get together and get along. And it was like, where have you been all my life? It was it just filled a hole I didn't even know I had. I mean, I thought I had friends and people and mentors, and I do, but to have that sort of venue and to have great speakers like you and the people who came that first year, it was a whole lot better than we expected it to be.
So who were some of let's give some shout outs to some people. Who were some of the initial sponsors that came on board and wrote checks in the beginning when you thought nobody else would?
CDK is a major sponsor. Cars.com has been a major sponsor. Cox is a great sponsor. One of the ones that is near and dear to my heart is Next Up.
I love those guys.
I know. And it's, they don't have to spend a lot of money, but they always do something really special so that everyone pays attention to their booth. They had the flowers in July. They had the flower wall with
the angel wings,
angel wings in December. Just that kind of stuff where people are making an effort to make it special for the women who come. Just so cool. Super, super cool.
I don't know if I ever told you this, but we all flew out of Dallas together, and there was like 8 seats in first class, and we were the 8, me and Next Up.
Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
There were a few cocktails flowing because it's about 3 hours from Dallas to California.
Yes.
And all of us flew into Palm Desert. And boy, that to me was the most fun ever. But I'm not going to go off on that one yet. I want to go back to that first one. Okay, so you brought in a few sponsors. The fire marshal almost had to come. Was there any time during that conference or after that conference that gave you a moment of pause where you thought, okay, I'm one and done? Or anything happened?
No, I mean, for sure, before every conference I freak out. It's kind of my nature to do that because it's a big financial risk. But no, I mean, after that conference, I was like, wow, I mean, we really have something here. And so it's morphing. We're trying to figure out, what other things we can do with it. But we've had one, this is our 4th year. Last year we had 2. There's always an element of freak out because you just don't know, maybe everyone's sick of this. No one's going to come again. And, so there's always that, but for me, it's just, we're going to do it forever and ever. Amen. Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. And then, there's a whole education component to it. In fact, I put out a big post today on Facebook because I'm building the 2018 calendar. And I've had the pleasure of being the dean of the Women Powered University, which is owned by the Women in Automotive Conference and you and your team, Christy. And and just trying to not make it just about education in the automotive industry, but also, self-motivation and self-improvement, because, we believe that women are a whole being. They're not just, they weren't just born to be executives or to be in the car business. And we really want to help women be all they can be, whether it's in their careers, them personally. We had fabulous Sharon Lecter who comes and she talks about their financial life. And, because it's really hard to be great at work and to be focused when you've got other stuff going on in your life. And so we really do take a holistic approach to this conference, which is so different than any other automotive conference in the world ever, right?
Yes, because, there's lots of sales training out there. There's thousands of webinars and things you can see on sales, but there's not very many places where you can see, work-life balance, or like you said, Sharon Lecter talking about how women put finances sort of at the bottom of their whole to-do list, and how important it is for that not to be the case. There's so many different areas. I mean, and I read an article, trying to be all things to all people is really difficult. something has to give. And so helping people kind of figure out how to maximize their lives in whatever way they can. So it's not, I give 110% at work and then I give 20% at home. Just helping people really understand you do have to have balance. Balance is healthy. I read someone said there's no such thing as work-life balance. I don't agree with that. I think you have to have it because they feed each other. Work feeds your home life and how you support yourself, but your home life feeds your ability to go to work and do your job well and to really focus on success and things that will help you further your family. So I really believe that that's such an important piece, and that's part of the content we're trying to provide. And again, part of the culture that we're trying to help dealers understand. It's important. Work-life balance is important. So how can we help them incorporate that into their business model so that they'll get more women to stay?
Well, I'll tell you, I know you've been traveling, so you probably didn't get to see my show 2 weeks ago with Ali Rita. Ali broke the world sales record, and he's about to be inducted into the Guinness Book of World Records. And I said, well, Ali, I mean, the only way you can break the world sales record is I'm sure you're working day and night, 6 days, 7 days a week, bell to bell. And he said, no, Lisa, actually, I work Monday through Friday, 9 to 6. And I just literally, my mouth about fell open. And I said, how can you do it? How can you break the world sales record? He said, because it is as important to me to break the record at home of being a great husband and father as it is to break the world sales record. And he said, so I just do it. I get it done. Now, in fairness, he has a couple of assistants that just help him with paperwork, but he's living proof, car dealers out there that are watching this, whether it's men or women. I think one of the number one reasons people leave is a big reason I left is because, I don't want to work 6 days a week, 8 hours, 8 hours, listen to me, 12 hours a day,
right,
and tied to it. And I think Ali has proved that. And he's sending a very big message into the industry that, you don't have to do that. You just have to be more efficient with your time. You have to be a better networker. In fact, Ali's somebody we should come get to speak at Women in Automotive, although I'm afraid everyone will get up and quit because they're like, dang, I want one of those 8 to 5 jobs.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, the reality is I think dealerships will benefit greatly from creating schedules like that. I mean, I was a single mom and, 20 years ago, and if I didn't go to work because my kids were sick, I might lose my job. And so I practice at my business that, I care about what you do when you're at work. I don't care if you sit there and look like you're working so you're on the payroll. I care that if this is your job, this is what you do. I don't care how you do it, when you do it, if you have to go to the dentist. I don't care about that. I just care that you do your job. And what I find is when you give people the flexibility to have their lives and their jobs, not their jobs and their lives, people stay. They stay and they have much more. They don't need maybe as much money as they would necessarily if they were going to work a lot harder. It just because it facilitates the ability to enjoy both your job and your life. You're not having to choose one over the other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I'll tell you, I think that's the number one feedback I hear. And I'm wondering if it's what you hear from women just going, I love this industry. I love doing what I do. But you know what? I don't want to miss my kids' soccer games on Saturdays. I can't stay after 6 o'clock because I've got to pick a child up from daycare. And so, the industry ends up losing so many amazing women because they just are not willing to sacrifice, nor should they, their family and their children. Whereas men have usually, not always, 80-20 rule here, have the freedom to do that. And, they're more driven to do that. Because they have a spouse at home taking care of the family. But when you're just like you, Christy, you're a single mom. How are you supposed to do all of that? And
it's impossible. It's impossible. And one of the things about millennials is that they're not going to work 6 days a week either. No. So it started as a movement for women. Actually, when you look at the broader cultural issues, the generation coming up is not going to work 6 days a week. Those are men that want to stay home when their wives have babies and be with their kids. And these are people that don't care so much about how much money they make as how much time they get to have life. Again, it's life balance. And so the whole industry is going to have to adjust to that. I mean, it doesn't matter. We can sit over here saying hire women. But they, again, in 10 years, they don't have a bench. There's nobody waiting to work at a car dealership. 85% of kids graduating from college don't have jobs. I promise you they're not looking at car dealerships. as an opportunity. And that's a problem because car dealers should be able to get interns. They should be able to get college graduates. They should be able to get the best of the best, but they have to change the way they train and the way they develop, and then the way they compensate their employees.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love you said that, and I don't know if you caught yourself saying it a minute ago, but you said the movement. And I don't think 4 years ago when I met you at the first conference, or maybe it's been 4.5 now, that you thought of it as a movement, or did you?
No, not at all.
It was a conference.
It was a conference. It was something we had thought would be a really cool idea. I knew we'd all go, so at least we'd have 6 people. But it was I did not know that's what we were doing.
So now when people like myself say to you, Christy, you started a movement. How does that make you feel? What sense of responsibility do you have, or do you feel upon yourself because of this movement that you started?
I mean, I don't feel necessarily responsible so much, but I do have a passion for protecting the industry. And when you look at some of the disruptors that are happening, and Amazon and some of these things that really threaten the basis of the franchise system, I feel compelled to keep my job by saying, hey, everyone, let's look at what's happening in this industry, and let's not wait for things to happen to it. Let's be proactive and figure out how we can move along with these disruptors and these changes and preserve what has been up until this point a pretty good system. But when you match, customer dissatisfaction with the process of buying cars, and the fact that companies like Amazon are partnering with, like Hyundai, and you don't even have to go to the dealership. They're gonna bring you the test drive. They're gonna value your trade. They're gonna do all the things that dealers have always said they have to come to the dealership for, and they don't. And so when you look at trends, I have a real concern about the viability of the industry as a whole for a long period of time. So it's a little bit, I guess, self-interest on my part to keep this going, because I like my job. I like helping dealers. I think there's a lot of opportunity to make it a much better industry for women and young people. And so that's what kind of keeps me going.
So what was the initial feedback? I'm going to put you on the spot here. It wouldn't be a good podcast if I didn't. What was the initial feedback from the male-dominated car dealer when you went out to your clients and said, hey, guess what I'm doing? I'm going to bring all the women together and we're going to empower them. Did it scare the hell out of them?
Honestly, since we have it in Orlando and I have dealers in Orlando, I had thought that it would be a regional event, that we would get people to drive from Florida and come to this event. And I went to all my clients, I gave them free tickets, and very few of them came. And it turned out to be a national conference, which really, really surprised and disappointed me, because I really thought, wow, I mean, these are my clients I've worked with, some of them for years, and I've given this opportunity for their women to come to this conference. And, they'd say, well, she can't be gone that long, or she has to be this, or, I was really, I was very disappointed by that. And then I was equally surprised at how many people came from all around the country to the event. So it's never been what I thought it would be, which would be a regional event people could drive to and spend some time. And that's one of the transitions that we're kind of trying to make, is how can we make it where more people can locally drive and spend a day and get this great content without having to sacrifice 2.5 days or fly somewhere or whatever. And so that's part of why we're going to do that one-day event at the LA Auto Show, so that we can tap into that local market and make sure as many women as possible have a chance to come and experience something like this.
Well, yeah, and I'm still surprised even this year at the one in California in Palm Desert, which was just out of the ballpark. It was so much fun, and the weather was perfect, and the venue was perfect, yes, and the speakers were amazing. But I'm still surprised how many of the women told us that they're like, oh my God, where's this conference been my whole life? I've never heard of it before. And I'm like, dang, woman, where have you been? But, it's really hard to get the word out on something of this magnitude. But, I almost wonder if those local dealers, those ones that are your clients, maybe they operated a little bit in fear. Maybe they knew, what you were going to bring, because I do feel like that this is a bit of an industry sometimes where they want to, where dealers don't like to see their people shine anybody other than them. They like their names on the sign. And then, the people, the underlings who come up and they shine, they don't like that a lot. There's a lot of ego involved in this industry.
Yeah, it's a different management strategy. I remember applying for jobs and people saying that they wouldn't give me the jobs because they knew I wouldn't stay in that job forever because that's just not how I am. And so, there's two ways of managing. There's managing where you just manage the function and you hold the people back. You're not really trying to grow them. You just want them to be able to do their job well. And then my philosophy is, how do you develop people into who can grow and be great and do better things than you've been able to do. And so that's my philosophy. Is I think there's a lot of that. I think dealers, well, if I send her there, maybe she'll get a better job, or, there's certainly a lot of that. And I have just, that's just not my philosophy. I manage to empower people to be great and do whatever it is they want to do. I tell people, I remember this is advice I got like 20 years ago, always be looking for a job, which some people think is nuts, but I just believe if you're in a job and you can continually interview and see what else is out there and you stay in your job, you're going to be better because I'm choosing to stay here. I could go over there. I've interviewed at these, but I choose to stay here versus waiting till you're miserable and just go, you make the route. A lot of people go from one store to the other. I don't think, that's particularly good for anyone. And so that's always sort of been my management philosophy.
Well, and I'm going to back that up because you actually said that from stage at Women in Automotive this year with all of your employees sitting in the room. And yes. I was literally going, did she really just say that? Wow.
Yeah.
And I was laughing and I was looking over at your gals and I'm thinking, well, it must be legit, for you to say that. It was a very bold statement from the stage, but I agree with it very much. Okay, so if you had to give, obviously, my book and this podcast, it is about the art of the big sell. It's about building a movement. Let's say that, there's lots of people out here that I can see watching right now that are not in the automotive business, but, they may have a dream, like someone like you, because what you did, Christy, is you came in and you solved the problem. The problem is that women in the automotive industry were not connected. We didn't even know each other existed, myself included. And you brought us together, and there were friendships that were formed, and that will always be friends. I think, I know. I don't think I know. And what would be your advice on somebody who had a big audacious dream like you did, or just to start something, just to have what would you tell them? What is step one?
I mean, step one is to go for it. I've always, I know a lot of people, I was talking to someone that, people are really scared to take the first step because failure is always an option, but I've failed. I mean, I've failed hugely in my career, but I wouldn't have gotten to where I am without that. And so I think the first step is to be convicted about what it is you want to do. Whatever that dream is, you have to be really passionate about it so that no matter who's standing there saying that's not going to work or you're going to fail, that can't take you off your game. You have to have enough conviction in what it is you're dreaming about that you are going to go for it, come hell or high water. That's the first step. The second step is to take the steps to make it happen, to take the risk, to step out there because, and this is another thing I always say is, when you look at where you are in your career, what do you have to lose? When you get to a certain point in your career, maybe taking risks is a little bit more scary. But if you're working at a dealership and you're doing a great job and you have a dream, you can always go back to doing that. It's not like something that there aren't positions open. And so I just think people need to look at, what are you passionate about? What do you believe would change whatever it is you want to do? And then what's the worst thing that could happen if you do it? What, you could go bankrupt. I've done that. I lost everything I had. Huh?
I said, well, the president's been bankrupt 3 times. So, what the heck?
Yeah, he might have been a little more different kind of bankrupt than me. Like I was really bankrupt. So to lose everything you have, that gives you a lot of perspective because, you think you need all this stuff to live. And then you find out, well, I can actually make it on whatever I have. And so that also gives you, it certainly makes you pause and think, where did I screw up so that I don't make those mistakes going forward, hopefully. But also it just teaches you perspective. You just don't have perspective till you take that step. And even if it means there's a risk and you might lose, you might fail, that's actually not necessarily a bad thing. That's just maybe a step in the process for you to get to where it is you want to be.
So if I were to hand you a crystal ball, what would you say the future of the Women in Automotive, what do you see for the next 5 years for the Women in Automotive Conference? What is your vision as the leader?
Well, certainly we'll keep having events, and hopefully we'll be able to do more like one-day events that we can get more of that regional feel, which is what we kind of hoped we would get in the beginning. But the other thing is, where can we plug holes in the industry? Can we create training programs for women who go to work at dealerships where they come to us first, and our job is to educate them as women in automotive, not necessarily on the sales piece, but like, how do you operate as a woman in automotive? What are the things that can help you be successful in a dealership, especially if it continues to be male dominated? So really trying to figure out where are the things that we can plug for the dealer industry at large. So we're looking for those types of things. What kind of training, what kind of content, what can we provide that will help dealers facilitate the ability to hire and retain women?
Yeah, I think if you could come up with that training, or I think if you come up with the solution of how dealers can hire more women, you will never go bankrupt again. It won't ever happen. You'll be the richest chick in the country, because it's a lot harder to do.
Like that.
Yeah, that would be good. But because I put you on the show and I gave you the idea, we'd have to have some sort of financial arrangement on that. But that being said, I mean, it's really a big task. So tell us about the next conference, when it's coming, and what kind of speakers and what type of sponsors, and tell us about what it looks like in Orlando coming in June.
So it's June 24th to the 26th. We are going to have a theme, which is going to be Stronger Together. And so one of the things we hoped to do by having themes is to help the speakers and really just the content be built around something that everyone buys into. And so Stronger Together is going to be our theme. We'll have many of our sponsors back, Cox, cars.com. Next up, certainly we'll be back. And
Tesla with the last one.
I hope Tesla will come, but we'll have to see. Tesla's kind of far from this venue. So we'll have to work on if we can do something with them. But we're working on all the details there. One thing that we do, I think, is particularly cool, and we didn't really market it, is that we do provide childcare during our conference, during the cocktail, during the whole time that people are there. We provide childcare because I believe if a woman wants to bring her kids and go to Disney World, and this sort of becomes a twofer, she can come and get great content, and then she can take her kids to Universal or Disney. We want to be able to provide an opportunity for that. So we do provide childcare. It's no charge whatsoever, and it's during the entire conference. So that's something that we do that I think I've never seen it. I've never seen it anywhere.
It's never been done. But see, that's because you're a woman who started a movement, who's putting on a women's conference. And as a single mom, you understand what are some of the things that will keep her from being able to attend.
Right.
And so, once again, the Women in Automotive Conference, we solve a problem. You have kids, but you want to come, then bring your kids.
Yep.
Solve the problem.
Yep.
Yeah, it's huge. And that's expensive. I mean, that's a big expense on the conference. And, that just shows, the dedication of you and the team and the board to make sure that every woman can get there. I also know that we've given scholarships in the past to come to the conference. So there's just so many times that, there's just so much that we don't want there to be a barrier. And typically what I've found, Christy, the barriers is their bosses,
Yes. And we've made it really cost effective. Most conferences are $800 or higher of this caliber because you get food and cocktails and all that. And we do not, our goal is to have it primarily sponsor paid for so that we can make it affordable for people to come, because it's not, if it's coming out of your pocket, you can't, I went to a conference that was $1,800. You can't, the average person cannot do that. And so making it like our early bird rate is like $395, and it's a 2.5-day event. Yeah, everything's included, including childcare.
Yeah. Cocktails. Did we say cocktails?
Yes. Entertainment. Yes.
We have chocolate, we have wine, we have cocktails, we have a party to open up the conference, we have a wonderful lunch, and we have a party that night. There's a theme to this party.
Yeah.
We get to see all of our friends from around the country. There's childcare provided. The hotel rooms, gosh, I think they're under $200, which is unbelievable in today's world.
Yes.
And I forgot to tell you, I think I told you the story before, but the first conference, I was so taken back by a girl who came up to me and she said, I cashed out. I had to take a loan out of my 401k to come to this conference. And she said, and if I have to do that every year again, I will never miss this conference.
Oh, you didn't tell me that. That's great.
But it was
there's a lot of stories like that. It's funny because, one of my good friends, who hasn't come, and I asked her to come, please come. And she finally came. And I just think I don't think she had high expectations, but she told me she was in a place in her life where she just needed this. And it just filled that, whatever it was that she's going through. And it's so cool to hear stories like that, where people's lives are changed because of something like this conference. That's a lot more responsibility than I thought I had in the beginning. Now I kind of feel like, okay, if we're going to change lives, then let's change lives. Let's figure out how to do that on the most granular level. And so that has been one of the most unexpected rewards I could have ever imagined coming out of this.
And you've put together this just power board of women, and they're amazing. And from, just amazing, a lot of executives and high level executives. And, they're all out there and they're talking to the women, and, it isn't like it's an us against them. It's like, hey, we're here, come talk to us. We'll do anything we can to help you. I think of someone I met at the very first conference was Amy Banner. Mm-hmm. And she came up to me afterwards and she just said, I'd love someday to see you again. And I said, well, that would be great. And I fly back to Texas, and she went back to Fargo, North Dakota at the time. And I got an email from her about 90 days later. And she said, if I come to Texas, will you meet with me? And I was like, well, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to go to Fargo, North Dakota. I think you're darling, but that's not happening. And so she did. She flew into Austin, Texas. And I'll tell you, she and I have been great friends ever since. And I've mentored her a lot, and she's just become a good friend. And I would have never met her, but she had the guts to get on a plane, to come meet somebody she wanted to meet, because I do believe that as women that, you can't be what you can't see. And so it's so hard in this industry not having female and relatable role models. And that's what I think this conference does such a great job at, is that we put all these relatable role models up on stage. It's like, hey, I'm a dealer, or hey, I'm VP at Cox Automotive, or hey, I'm the president of Now Digital, whatever. But you know what? We're still girls, and we still want to be cute. We want to look good, and we want to drink wine, and come talk to us. And if there's something I could say that would encourage you or that would help you, just ask me, And so, there is no celebrity status, or, even with some of the big speakers and stuff that come in, it's just like, no, we're just women, and we're here to help, and we're here to serve.
Right.
I think that's so unique when you look at some of these other conferences, and, these speakers come off stage and they got security and they're moving out the door, and, they might have inspired you, but you're never going to see them again unless, you spend a lot of money to work with them. And that is not what this conference stands for.
No, it's really, we want it to be something that's for everyone, that's anyone who comes, a man who's running a dealership, a woman who's working in the back office, whatever role you have, it doesn't matter your sex or any of that, even though it's obviously prominently for women. Men that can come and get a lot of worth out of it too. And we've had more men coming recently, because I do think there are a lot of dealers like, what do we have to do? How do we do this? And that's really part of it too. It's like, we all need to come up with a solution. It's not like tomorrow everyone's going to know how to hire and retain women. It's really kind of like, you try this and this person's trying this, and we get together and we come up and we say, okay, this worked, this didn't. And people have to try, they have to be innovative and try to figure out, like, what is it that we can do to sort of drive the culture that will keep women, not just hire them. We know they'll, it's a great industry too. That's the other piece. So that's another thing we get to do, is talk about,
There's a lot of money to be made. And
there's a lot of money to be made. And yes.
It's easy to stand out.
And you don't have to have a lot of education to do it. No. So it's just, it's something where it's a win-win. And so we're trying to balance that. So people who are in the industry and feel lost and confused and don't want to stay, we can inspire them to stay, to go back home and fight another day, so to speak. And then on our side, how can we help dealers, figure out what's the next generation? What do we need to do to deal with all the disruptions that are happening? What do we need to do?
Yeah.
So hopefully we're balancing both sides of the equation.
Well, Christy, I know that you've certainly inspired me today, and I will be at the next conference. I wouldn't miss one, because then I would have to miss hanging out with all my girlfriends and drinking wine and listening to great speakers and just being totally inspired. So how do people find you? How do people find Christy Roman? How do people find Women in Automotive? So I wouldn't want to end this show without people knowing how to contact you.
So womeninautomotive.com, you can go to my information, I guess I can give too, which is Christy at Now Digital, CHRISTY at nowdigital.com. I'm not sure if my number's on the website, but for sure you can go to Women in Automotive and send a form if you have any questions. If you send me an email, I'm happy to address any questions. I'm very approachable. I'm not at all standoffish. I don't like to get on the stage, but I'm not. I love talking to people, and I'm happy to help anyone who might have any questions or want to participate in one way or another.
Or sponsor anybody out there.
Anybody who wants to sponsor, and you are going to come and keynote for us again this year, so that's awesome. Yes.
Like I said, this is a conference I would not miss. Like, I put it on my calendar at the beginning of every year. And like, those dates are just non-negotiables, because there's just too much fun, too much content, too much of people that I love there all the time. And, there's nothing like it. So all the women I see, there's a lot of women on here right now. I think eventually, Christy, at some point, I think you have a dream to potentially open a conference up to women who are, in all industries. Is that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I think Women Powered is actually that would be the sort of the umbrella under which all the other things will fall. But yes, I mean, the idea that we could provide, I guess when I look at it, just from the things that I didn't have when I was younger, I guess, and I had kids, is, just the kinds of support and help and content that really does help with your life, and that helps you develop your career. Those are the kinds of things I am passionate about trying to provide for women in general.
Well, that's awesome, and thank you so much for everything you do. This is what we bring at the Art of the Big Sell. Is we talk to people. I talk to people that have big ideas, and I think one of Christy's big ideas, that at least is my takeaway from this show, is that number one, you have to just do it. If you've got a dream or you've got a passion, you've got to be willing to take a chance.
Yep.
And you've got to be willing to put your fear on the shelf, which is what I talk about so often at the Women in Automotive conferences, is to fear less. Because just like she said, you can always go back if you have to, but if you've got a burning desire, you've got a burning platform, you absolutely need to go for it, because we only go around this earth one time, around this sun one time. And Christy, you're doing it well. And you're changing women's lives. I can't wait to see you in June. I know the conference, again, is just going to be off the chain, because that's what we do. Plus it'll be a little bit warmer, so that's fun. June in Florida is always a good time.
That's for sure.
All right, my friend. Well, thank you so much for sharing with everybody. And I look forward to seeing you in June. And for all of you out there in the automotive industry, be sure to go to womeninautomotive.com, men or women. We have lots of guys that we call them the guys that get it. In fact, I talked to one of our favorites today, Christy, Tony D, and they would not miss this conference. So go to womeninautomotive.com, get registered now. This conference will sell out, and you will not want to miss all the fun in Orlando. Thank you, Christy.
Thank you, Lisa.